A small team inside a Chinese hedge fund did something that made no financial sense. They had spent months building one of the most capable artificial intelligence models on Earth. And then, instead of selling it, they uploaded it to the internet and let anyone in the world download it for free. 9 days later, on the other side of the planet, Nvidia lost nearly $600 billion of its value in a single trading day. The most valuable chip company in history, gutted because a group most people had never heard of gave their best work away. So here's the puzzle this whole story turns on. The companies with the least money open sourced their crown jewels. The companies with the most money locked theirs in a vault. Why? That $600 billion wipeout was the biggest one-day loss any company has ever suffered. And the thing that caused it was not a war or a scandal or a factory burning down. It was a model called DeepSeek, released for free, that suddenly made the most expensive strategy in technology look like it might not be necessary after all. To see why this matters, you need to know what these companies actually gave away. When a model is trained, all of its intelligence ends up frozen into a giant file of numbers called the weights. Those weights are the model. If you have the file, you can run the model on your own computer, tune it for your own purpose, take it apart, and see how it thinks. No permission, no subscription, no company watching over your shoulder. When a lab releases those weights to the public, we call the model open. When it keeps the file secret and only lets you send it questions over the internet for a fee, we call it closed. Almost every famous American model is closed. The file never leaves their building. The difference is not a small technicality. It decides who has power. With a closed model, the company can raise the price, change the rules, or cut you off, and there is nothing you can do because you never held the thing itself. With open weights, once that file is on your hard drive, it is yours forever. It cannot be taken back. A downloaded file does not care about a border, a subscription, or a change of heart in a boardroom. And DeepSeek was not alone. It turned out to be the opening move in a wave. Alibaba's model family, called Qwen, spelled Qwen but said Qwen, started shipping open version after open version. Moonshot released Kimi. Zhipu, said Zhipu, released a family called GLM. Then MiniMax, then Baidu, then more. Month after month, China's best labs kept doing the thing that was supposed to be commercial suicide. They kept publishing their most powerful models with permissive licenses that let anyone, including their competitors, use them for almost anything. It worked! By early 2026, Alibaba's open models had been downloaded more than 1 billion times, reportedly reaching that milestone faster than any open model family in history. At one point, more than half of the top open models on the world's biggest model hub were Chinese. Developers everywhere, including inside the United States, were quietly building on them because the license was clean and the model was good enough to win. And this was not just downloads sitting on a shelf. On one of the largest marketplaces where developers actually route their traffic, Chinese open models grew to around 61% of everything being processed. 4 of the 5 most used models were Chinese. Slowly, quietly, the default engine of the open internet was becoming Chinese. Which brings us back to the question we still have not answered. Why would you give this away? The first answer is the least romantic and the most important. Follow the money, and you find that China's biggest AI labs simply do not make their living selling access to models. Alibaba, Tencent, and ByteDance are cloud, advertising, and shopping empires. The model is not the product they sell you. It is a feature that makes their real products stickier and a magnet that pulls developers onto their cloud. DeepSeek is stranger still. It grew out of a quantitative hedge fund, a firm that makes money trading markets, not renting chatbots. For a company like that, giving the model away costs almost nothing because it was never the thing being sold. Now, compare that to an American startup that has raised billions of dollars on a single promise that it will sell access to the smartest model in the world. For that company, the weights are not a feature. They are the entire business. Opening them would be like a restaurant publishing its only recipe and then wondering why anyone still pays to eat there. The generosity of China's labs is real. It is also, for them, almost free. Put the two side by side, and the mystery starts to dissolve. For an American lab whose whole company is selling access to one secret model, opening the weights means handing a rival your business overnight. For a Chinese giant that earns its billions elsewhere, opening the weights costs almost nothing and buys enormous goodwill. Same action, completely different price tag. But money is only the first layer, because openness also turns out to be a weapon. The clearest voice on why comes from this man Liang Wenfeng, said Li Onwenfeng, the founder of DeepSeek. When Chinese reporters asked him why he would open source a model that cost a fortune to build, he did not talk about charity. He talked about strategy. In a fast-moving field, he argued, a secret is a weak thing to build a company on. The moment you have a breakthrough, everyone else can see that it is possible, and they start catching up. A locked door only slows them down. It never stops them. His point was blunt. In the face of disruptive technology, he said, a moat created by closed source is temporary. Even OpenAI's secrecy cannot stop others from catching up. The real moat, he argued, is not the file. It is your team, your culture, and how fast you can build the next thing. And if the secret is going to leak anyway, you may as well open it yourself and collect the credit, the talent, and the loyalty of every developer who builds on your work. Then there is the wall. For years, the United States has restricted the sale of its most advanced chips to China, betting that, without the best hardware, China could not lead in AI. Open weights are a quiet way around that wall. Think about it. If your model lives only on your own servers, and your servers depend on chips you are not allowed to buy in quantity, then serving the whole world becomes a bottleneck. But if you simply publish the file, the rest of the planet runs your model on their hardware, in their countries, at their expense. You do not need to win the chip war to win the influence war. You just need everyone building on your work. A restriction on hardware cannot stop a link to a download. And underneath all of it is the longest game of all. Whoever's models the world learns on becomes the standard. When a student in Lagos, a startup in Berlin, or a researcher in Sao Paulo builds their first tool, they reach for whatever is free, capable, and easy to start with. Today, more and more often, that is a Chinese model. Every one of those choices is a small vote for whose technology becomes the default. The way the world once standardized on American software without ever quite deciding to. China's own national strategy now names open source as a goal. Give the tools away. And you do not just sell a product. You set the terms everyone else has to build within. For a while, America had its own champion of openness, and it was Meta. Its Llama models proved that a Western company could ship serious open weights, and much of the world's open ecosystem was built on them. But then, the story wobbled. Meta's most ambitious flagship stumbled in testing and was held back. Reports said the company was drifting toward keeping its next models closed. By 2026, it had split the difference, releasing one open family while holding a more powerful model private. The one big Western bet on openness had turned into a hedge. You could watch the pressure land in real time, in the headlines. A record-breaking market crash. American executives suddenly debating, in public, whether their secrecy had been a mistake. And the loudest admission of all came from the company that had made closed models cool in the first place. Days after DeepSeek's release, Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, sat down for a public question and answer session online. And he said something remarkable for a man whose entire company was built on keeping its models secret. I personally think, he wrote, that we have been on the wrong side of history here and need to figure out a different open source strategy. Months later, OpenAI did something it had not done in years. It released open weight models of its own. The pressure from the other side of the world had reached all the way into the most closed lab in America. So who is actually winning? Here is where it gets subtle, because there are really two races, not one. In the race for the single most powerful model on any given day, America's closed labs are often still ahead. That is the frontier, and they still hold it. But there is a second race for the model that most of the world actually runs. The good enough, free, everywhere engine that quietly powers the most tools. And that race increasingly belongs to China's open models. The frontier becomes a headline. The open tier eats the volume. You can lead the first race and still lose the second. And that reframes the whole thing. For years, we assumed the prize in artificial intelligence was to build the single smartest model and guard it behind a wall. But if the model layer becomes cheap, open, and abundant, then the smartest model stops being a fortress and starts being just another feature, easy to copy and quickly matched. The real prize becomes something quieter and much harder to take away. Being the foundation, being the layer underneath everything, the thing the whole world is already building on before it even stops to ask who made it. That is a position you cannot buy with a better benchmark score. You can only earn it by being everywhere first. And right now, one side of this race understood that, and the other is only beginning to. So, the next time you use an AI tool, it is worth asking a simple question. Whose model is actually underneath it, and why did they let you have it? Because the answer is rarely just generosity. It is strategy, playing out on a scale most of us never see. If you had to choose today, would you rather build on a model you can hold in your hand and keep forever, or one you rent from a company that can change the terms whenever it likes? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And if you want more stories about the hidden logic behind the technology you use every day, stay with us here on Second Order.